session for RSE in Digital Humanities. I'm Adrian and I will chair this session. And the first speaker is Eckhart Arnold from the Bayerische Akademie der Wissenschaften. And he will give us a talk about a domain-specific notation for the medieval Latin dictionary. And you have 15 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes left. I read the sign. And one
okay, I appreciate that.
5 minutes question and answer.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to talk about the medieval Latin dictionary and our project to introduce a new technology for writing and entering articles into this dictionary. And today I'm not so much going into technical details, but more about how this project worked. And if you are interested in the technology, you can ask me later or tomorrow if somebody's coming to my workshop. Okay, basically I'm first going to say a few words about what the medieval Latin dictionary is. Then I'm going to tell you how we planned the introduction of the new article writing system. Then some things about the realization, and then a resume where I also will say, talk a little bit about the things that went wrong, because it's, as I find, typically the most interesting part. Okay, first, the medieval Latin dictionary. This is a research project of the Bavarian Academy of Sciences and Humanities. And it's a scientific dictionary of the written Latin language of the Middle Ages. And when we speak of dictionaries, we are not speaking of the one-volume books that you buy in a bookstore, but about 10 volumes and a team of 12 people who need several decades to actually write this dictionary and compile this dictionary. And it covers a time span from 500 to 1080, so it's not classical Latin that was spoken in Roman times, but later on. And the geographic region is mostly German, and also the literature is mostly theological. There's a bit of profane literature as well, but you have to understand that it is a selection. Not all Latin that was spoken or written at the time is, of course, included, because it's virtually impossible to do so. Okay, and this is how it looks like in print. Actually, this is also already one of the printed pages that we produced after introducing the technology. And it was one of our goals that we can continue to produce printed volumes of the same kind that we had before. But as you can see, it looks rather dense. It is in fact very deeply nested, like you have these divisions A1 and then maybe Roman 1, and so there are up to 6 levels of divisions. And they use a lot of abbreviations, which as a beginner you do not even understand. So really, to understand this dictionary, you have to use it a lot. It's a dictionary for experts. Okay, but the whole structure of these articles is basically logically, and they have strict rules how they write those dictionary articles. And that was one of the points that's important later on. So how did they write their articles before we, as the Digital Humanities team, came in? That is like 5 years ago. They wrote the articles with a common word processor. Actually, they started with a typewriter in the 1950s, but then they moved to word processors. And at the time when we talked to them about a new technology, they had a bit of a problem there, because all this article preparation went through a Word 6.0 version from 1995, and some smart guy had written all those Visual Basic scripts for them, and they couldn't translate these Visual Basic scripts to newer Word versions. Actually, that was the first thing we tried, like as low-hanging fruits, but it didn't work out. The software was badly documented, there was a lot of bad code, and we thought, okay, don't worry about that, we introduced something new. Okay, but the nice thing about Word is they have what you see is what you get, which is kind of nice if you write those articles. They don't have that anymore. Okay, now planning the new article writing system. First of all, what was our motivation? Well, 2 things. We wanted to make these articles machine readable, because if you don't have them only in a printed volume, you can do all kinds of search functions. And machine readable doesn't mean you have Word documents, but you need structured data. So we wanted to move beyond what is possible with Word. And of course, once these articles are machine readable, it's easy to produce them for different output media, not just print, but also for an online version and things like that. But the most interesting thing is you can do so many things with data once it is machine readable. And we had several requirements for this project. First of all, we wanted a semantically precise markup. And we had to deal with these abbreviations, among other challenges. We didn't want to force the scientists to make any compromises, like to write this dictionary in a different style or to move from an article-based dictionary to a data-based dictionary where you record information about words, but where you do not write articles. In fact, articles are a little bit like scientific articles about a word, although they are strictly structures. And the next thing was, we couldn't allow ourselves any time to rest, like say, okay, for half a year we will try this new technology, and then you start again with new technology, and for 3 months there's a time of learning where you don't write articles. They have very strict schedule, and this would have been something that's not possible. So we somehow had to do it while they were still writing dictionary articles. Okay. Then we did a little bit pre-project where we thought, okay, what could be a good technology to produce structured data? One obvious choice that you at least try is XML editors. And unfortunately, when we started with this, the people weren't very happy, because XML actually is a very clumsy language, you have to admit. XML is great for machine readability, but it's not great for humans to write XML. And even XML editors like Oxygen, they make it a bit simpler, but it wasn't really their preferred choice. We had a Diplom-Arbeitsproject where somebody theoretically and practically tried to make a point-and-click interface from a formal description of the structure or possible structure of those articles. And the result was, well, theoretically it's possible, but practically you couldn't work with it. Point-and-click interfaces work like for simple forms, but not for dictionary articles. And then we had a domain-specific notation for which I made a prototype, and this was really the preferred choice. Once they had this, they didn't want to see the XML editor anymore. And so they really had the choice, and we found this technology works better. Okay. Then the next thing, once we had decided that, then the real work started, because if you are a technician or a software developer, XML editor is of course simple. You don't have to do anything. You give them the editor and they have to write the articles in metal with XML, and you have to, okay, configure in author mode, but that's all. But a domain-specific notation means you have to design this notation, write a parser, and all kinds of things. And it was actually much more work than I expected, but at that time, we had made the decision, we had made a lot of promises, so we had to get through that. This is how they work and what it looks like. We gave them Visual Studio Code as an editor, because it's a great editor, you can configure it greatly, and they have this editor has a language server protocol, which makes it easy to write extensions even in a different language. And it also makes it safe to write extensions, because at some point you could change the editor and still use your extensions. And as you can see, the articles are now written like a programming language. It looks a little bit like a programming language with keywords and with syntax highlightings. And here, when they want to quote a certain author, they already get a list of suggestions. They also have this overview about the structure, everything that you need and want. The only thing you don't have is what you see is what you get. But actually, they didn't miss it so much, because this is good enough. I mean, they see their article structure and they can have a preview. And the preview in the browser, and you could also theoretically make it in the editor, because somehow everybody is using the browser, looks then like this, which is already very similar to the printed text, so they can feel right at home there. And as you can see, these little emoticons, they show errors. I have not the error messages here, but at the end of the article they have error messages. That was also new for them, that they had to deal with a system that produces error messages. You don't just write your article and then you're finished. No, there are error messages. But actually I told them that this is similar, because if they write an article, they have to hand it into the main redactor, and then the main redactor comes back with error messages. So the computer doesn't do anything else. Okay. What needs to be done, and what does it take to make domain-specific notation? Well, first of all, you need to design this notation, and this means you need to know two things. You need to know the dictionary really well, and actually I admit I didn't know it well enough. I should have taken more time to study it before, but I learned it later. And you should have some experience with formal notations and also with formal grammars, otherwise it's getting very difficult. Then the other thing, you need to write a grammar, and that does not mean you just write a grammar in EBNF, and once the grammar is there, it's fine. You have to rewrite this grammar a lot and debug a lot, because during the processes that you learn, you have forgotten about things. And you must understand, the people writing this dictionary, they have a clear idea how they write their articles, but they've never written down this idea. So there's a lot of implicit knowledge, and they cannot give you a list of all special cases that they have to consider. You only learn that when it's already used, and then you have to rewrite and extend the grammar at least for some time. Now we don't change the grammar anymore, but there was a period of 1 year where we really worked a lot on the grammar. Okay, thank you very much. You have to set up a work environment. Oh, I have to be quick. And of course, things like feedback system, issue tracker and all, this is obvious. A little bit about software stack. The most important thing, we tried as few dependencies as possible, just to make things easy, and we were quite successful with that. And we tried to use components which you can install without asking the sysadmins, which is also very important, because especially in the beginning, you exchange things a lot, and if you have to ask the sysadmins, and they have to install things on the computers for 12 people, it really doesn't work. Okay, that was the software stack. Now, the most important part, the resume. First of all, well, I wouldn't have come here if it really had failed. But so overall, it was a success. The system works as expected. Everybody is on board. That was really questioning, because in the beginning, some people were complaining and said, oh, I still want to write my word. You have to understand, most of the people working there are like 50 years to 65 years. They're old. Some of them are not good with computers anyway. So that was kind of tricky. But in the end, it worked. Everybody is on board and is happy. The transition was smooth. We had no hiccups in the sense that time delays in the process of article writings. Like at one point we made the decision, now we use a new system, and then everybody really used this new system, and then it was very hard work for us because we had to fix bugs very quickly so that it really works. But after a few months this phase was over and it seemed to work, and it worked well. And of course we have all the advantages that we have machine readable output and all. Okay, now the greatest challenges socially was certainly getting everybody on board and making sure that everybody is happy with this and things like that, of course. Then establishing proper lines of communication, that was also a point. Like in the beginning, you think of, well, who should communicate? The head of the project with the head of a project, or everybody with everybody, or what else? In the end, its best was everybody with everybody, a video conference once a week where everybody can attend and complain about everything that doesn't work, and this worked really well. And there was just one little thing in the DH team, we had like one change. I sort of had to kick out our XML expert out because she wasn't a help anymore after we've decided not to use XML. Of course, the domain-specific notation is translated into XML, but I don't need anybody else designing this XML for me when I write the parser. It's something I can do along the way. But we did this in a friendly way. It's just, it wasn't a big problem, just mention it here. Then technically, as far as parser writing goes, writing parsers is one thing. Writing parsers that are error tolerant, that give you reasonable error messages and error locations, and that catch up after an error is much more difficult, and there's much less literature on that. Okay, then in the beginning we had these frequent demands for changing, and okay, about typographic rules. You have seen this printed article, and we had to kind of reproduce every comma and every semicolon, and they're an intricate set of rules, and that was really, in the end, more work than writing the parser to really implement all these rules. Okay, any regrets? The maybe most interesting part. First of all, we had done too little domain research in the beginning, mea culpa, so maybe I should have done an internship and wrote such an article myself. Well, don't know if my Latin would have been good enough, but that would have been reasonable. Then one real mistake we made, excusable. Back then we didn't have a research database for them. Now we have them, so they put every of the material in a research database. Since we didn't have one of them, thank you very much, when they wrote the articles, they have often quotations from secondary literature. The primary literature is not so much a problem because it's very much standardized. But the secondary literature, if they quote it, it means that you have to also write a parser for literature references. And it's hard work. And the other way around would have been better to tell them, okay, let's first make a database of all your secondary literature, and then you just quote it like with TeX with a cite command, and the computer in the end puts in the literature reference. So this was really the wrong way around. Okay. Then the other thing, okay, I'll just skip it. It's a more technical thing, how you design a parser. And of course, my experience with grammar coding wasn't very large. I knew about regular expressions, but not so much about EBNF. So this is probably one of the most clumsiest grammars I've ever written. Okay, here are the links. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope I didn't talk too fast, and I'm open for questions and comments, please.